Here's the world we live in. This is a radical jihadist group that is increasingly sophisticated in its ability, for example, to radicalize American citizens, in its ability to exploit loopholes in our legal immigration system, in its ability to capture and hold territory in the Middle East, as I outlined earlier, in multiple countries. This is not just the most capable, it is the most sophisticated terror threat we have ever faced. We are now at a time when we need more tools, not less tools. And that tool we lost, the metadata program, was a valuable tool that we no longer have at our disposal.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, certainly a big topic of conversation. And our next guest, New York Times bestselling author and author of Secrets of the FBI, Ronald Kessler, has a shocking new report. He wrote a piece for the Washington Times, the FBI's problem with Muslim leaders. And Ronald, welcome. All we hear is how much the Muslim community in this country has done in coming forward and thwarting attacks and helping us. And as you point out in your piece, there have been certain instances, but it's usually an individual Muslim. It's not the Muslim community, and imams, according to what you tell us, and that's according to the FBI through you, are especially reluctant to help the FBI and law enforcement, correct?
Correct, and we should bear in mind that it is true that the overwhelming percentage of Muslims are peace-loving. We all have friends and co-workers who are admirable people who are Muslims, and as you say, about a handful of plots have been rolled up by the FBI as a result of tips from individual Muslims. But I interviewed Art Cummings for my book, The Secrets of the FBI. He was executive assistant FBI director in charge of counterterrorism and national security investigations, which meant he was third level of the FBI, just under the deputy director. And he was totally candid about the problem the FBI faces, which, as you say, is that Muslim leaders whom they're trying to cultivate, and they have outreach programs, simply will not cooperate. Very rarely will they actually provide the FBI with a tip on radicals who are within their midst, whom they know about. Art Cummings related some anecdotes about, for example, meeting with one imam, very well known, and the imam said, "Can we take a picture of myself with Bob Mueller, the FBI director?" And Art Cummings said, "Well, yeah, we'd be glad to do that as soon as you bring us a few leads on actual Muslim radicals." And the imam said, "Well, I can't do that. That would be giving away my community," or something to that effect. In another case, Art Cummings related meeting with another imam. They had their tea. They had all kinds of nice talk about Islam. And Art Cummings said, "You know, there were these two radicals that I know were so radical that you expelled them, but you didn't tell us about them. Why didn't you do that? What happened?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, you know, these are people we wanted to know about. These people could be plotting attacks." And the imam said, "Well, they weren't terrorists. They just hated the U.S. government." So it was basically a cover-up. You know, since I did that piece, one or two Catholic friends said it's like the Catholic Church covering up pedophilia among priests. It's a situation where the imams, you know, on one hand, some of them are understandably afraid to go public to denounce ISIS, but all the FBI wants is confidential tips, and they simply will not do that.
Right, but Ronald, with all due respect, I don't see that analogy because it's not like imams are covering up, not that it would be acceptable, and certainly what happened in the Catholic Church is not acceptable, don't get me wrong, but it's not like imams are covering up for imams. Imams are covering up for parishioners or mosque-goers, and it would be the same. You know, it would be the same as the bishops covering up for a parishioner that they knew was abusing a child. But anyway, that aside, you know, and that quote that you put about the story you just told, they're not terrorists, they just hate the U.S. government. That leads me to the problem. You know, we keep hearing from groups like CARE and other groups that, you know, the Quran doesn't condone murdering innocents. But to these murderers and these people who adopt radical Islam, they're not, the people they're killing, all of us, we're not innocents. We're infidels. We deserve to die. So whenever I hear that word innocence, I always say to people, but then you got to ask them the definition of the word innocent.
You know, and Art Cummings mentioned CARE and a few other Islam groups, and said that on the one hand, they sort of go through an obligatory gesture of condemning terrorism, but they don't really, in an aggressive fashion, try to counteract it and provide tips and become much more like
Ronald,
activists.
you're doing a great service with this piece and the book, also a very, very important piece, I do believe. So I thank you very much, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
All right. Happy Hanukkah.
All right, you too. Ron Kessler, ladies and gentlemen. Up next, give me 5, and I'll give you a hint. It's all about Star Wars.